May 8th is Victory Day. On this day in 1429, inspired by the arrival of Joan of Arc, the French drove the English forces away from New Orleans. This pivotal victory earned her fame and the title the Maid of Orléans. From that moment on, belief in Joan's visions that she was sent by God to save France spread rapidly. And it was thanks to the Maid of Orléans that the French throne was ultimately claimed by a disinherited prince rather than the rightful heir, the King of England. But less than a year after the triumph in Orleans, Joan was captured. And just 1 year after that, she was executed. Why was Joan of Arc burned? And who was truly behind it? 3, 2, 1. Let's go. In 1420, this prince was disinherited by his father, the King of France. By law, he was no longer eligible to claim the crown. But his father was Charles VI, known as Charles the Mad, who suffered from glass delusion and believed he would shatter into 1,000 pieces if he fell to the floor. In March 1429, Joan of Arc came to the disinherited prince and declared that she had come to liberate Orleans and lead him to Reims for his coronation. Who was he? Charles VII, King of France, House of Valois. The mother-in-law of Charles VII had a rather unusual role. At the time, France and England were locked in the 100 Years' War. According to a legend popular in France, the country could only be saved from the English by a virgin. And it was Charles VII's mother-in-law who was tasked with verifying Joan of Arc's purity. What was her name? Yolande of Aragon, Duchess of Anjou and Countess of Provence. This illegitimate son of the younger brother of Charles VI the Mad commanded the forces holding back the English at Orleans. Joan of Arc didn't give any orders. Instead, she appeared on the battlefield unarmed, carrying her banner, showing up wherever the French troops began to retreat. Her presence alone inspired the soldiers to regroup and charge again. On May 8, 1429, the English retreated from Orleans, though Joan had been wounded in the neck by an arrow during the assault. The man who truly led the French army was this illegitimate son of the Duke of Orleans. Who was he? Jean de Dunois, the bastard of Orleans. This former chancellor of the University of Paris was already retired when Joan of Arc helped liberate Orleans. He was among the first to write a treatise in 1429 shortly before his death declaring that Joan truly had been sent by God just as she claimed. His influence within the Catholic Church was immense. In the late 14th century there were 2 popes, one in the Vatican and one in Avignon. And it was he who successfully convened a council that restored unity to the Catholic Church by replacing both popes with a single one. Who was he? Jean Gerson, Chancellor of the University of Paris. Under the command of this duke, Joan of Arc, who earned the title the Maid of Orléans after liberating the city, set out to free Reims. Joan often stood in the heart of battle, armed only with her banner. As a result, the army under this duke's leadership captured Reims, the traditional site where French kings were crowned. Who was he? Jean II of Alençon, Duke of Alençon. This King of England was the grandson of Charles VI the Mad and had a legitimate claim to the French throne, unlike Charles VII. However, the 8-year-old heir delayed his coronation. After the capture of Reims, Joan of Arc insisted that Charles VII be crowned there. Although 2 years later this rightful heir was crowned in Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, it wasn't enough to secure the throne. Who was he? Henry VI, King of England, House of Lancaster. Joan of Arc was captured on May 23, 1430 in Compiègne and ended up in the hands of this count. Before that, she had failed to take Paris, captured Saint-Pierre-le-Moudier, failed at La Chère-sur-Loire, but succeeded at Melun and Lagny-sur-Marne. After being taken prisoner, She attempted to escape 3 times, once jumping from a tower into a dry moat and breaking her leg. Eventually, this count sold Joan to the English for 10,000 livres. Who was he? Jean II of Luxembourg, Count of Ligny. This bishop initiated negotiations to ransom Joan of Arc from Count Ligny, and later became the chief judge in her trial. He was a graduate of the University of Paris and could not have been unaware of the support Joan received from respected rector Jean Gerson. Nevertheless, he charged her with heresy. The English needed to discredit the Maid of Orleans because of the growing legend of her as France's savior. This is why the trial was a church court and the judge was a Frenchman. Who was he? Pierre Cauchon, Bishop of Beauvais. This duchess inspected Joan of Arc's virginity for the second time during her life, on January 13, 1431. Despite living among medieval soldiers, enduring captivity, and being guarded by English troops during the trial, the Maid of Orleans remained a virgin. The Duchess confirmed this, although she herself was married to an Englishman. Who was she? Anne of Burgundy, Duchess of Bedford. At the request of Joan of Arc's family, this pope authorized a retrial 25 years after her execution on May 30, 1431. The new proceedings began on November 7, 1455 in Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. The trial concluded with a declaration of Joan's innocence. Although none of her original judges were punished, this pope's intervention made her rehabilitation possible. Who was he? Calixtus III, Pope of the Catholic Church. Killed at age 19, Joan of Arc became even more dangerous to the English after her death. Legends about her quickly spread. Some claimed she had escaped the flames. Others suggested she was of royal blood. One version said she was the daughter of Charles the Mad and his mistress Odette de Champdivers. Another claimed she was the child of Isabella of Bavaria and Louis of Orleans. As a result, even though Henry VI had a lawful claim and was crowned in Notre Dame Cathedral, the people accepted Charles VII as king, crowned in Reims thanks to Joan of Arc's insistence. In 1453, at the Battle of Castillon, the French ultimately defeated the English. England lost all its possessions in France, and Henry VI lost the French crown. On April 18, 1909, Pope Pius X beatified Joan of Arc. This was not yet full recognition of the Maid of Orleans as a saint but only as blessed. Even so, nearly 5 centuries had passed since her execution by burning. On May 16, 1920, Pope Benedict XV officially declared Joan of Arc a saint. However, she was not canonized as a martyr, meaning someone killed for their faith, but as a virgin, which meant the Church recognized her visions of the Archangel Michael as genuine. 2 years later, on March 2, 1922, Pope Pius XI proclaimed Joan of Arc the patron saint of France. Leave a comment to tell us who else should have been included in this video. Give it a like if you recognize them all.